All right, everyone. Welcome to the lesson video on conditionals. It's gonna start off with this little cute comic. Basically, this captures the essence what if statements are all about. And if you don't know, there's always a relevant XKC comic for any situation out there. So please have a look. But today our goal is to learn how to use conditionals to control the flow of our program. And so we're going to be talking about conditional statements, if statements, binary decisions, multiple decisions, and decisions within a decision to talk about if statements. Here we go. So what are conditional? It's a feature of programming languages that allows us to make different decisions in our program and compute different part of our program based on our Boolean condition, right? So conditionals can be statements, expressions, or constructs depending on what language or teacher you're learning from. And it's the main way we control what we call a flow of the program. Okay. But before we get to that, I want to talk about Boolean expression. Okay. Boolean expressions are a code or a statement that evaluates to true or false. Okay. So we use comparison operators, logical operators, membership operators, and later on you'll learn about identity operators. Okay. And all of these, when we use these operators, our final result should be a Boolean value of either true or false. And so we create a Boolean expression. Right, so we can assign them to a variable, we can use them in our if statements, and we can output that Boolean expression in a print function to get the Boolean value of that expression. So, and we've done these before. Right? If I have these variables, and if I go through all these Boolean expressions, they will evaluate to either true or false, and feel free to try them out on your own. Okay, so one thing I do need to talk about is Python order precedence or order of Python operators. Basically, in math, we have BEDMAS, so brackets, exponent, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, right? It creates a cute little it's a cute little way to memorize it. In Python, it's disgusting. Like, if you look at it, there's 10 different types of operators that we need to memorize. So this is not something I expect you to memorize. However, this is the order. So it does everything in parentheses first. Then we do our mathematical operator following BEDMAS. Then we do comparison, equality, assignment operators after that. Then we can do some identity, membership, and logical operators way at the end. So these two always happen last. So please remember that. It's a good thing to know. So let's look at an example here. I have a not of a quantity a is greater than or equal to 0 and a is less than or equal to 0. So basically, we're testing if a is within the range of 0 to 10 inclusively, and if so, it's gonna be false. All right. So order of operations, we're gonna evaluate the left bracket first, then the right bracket. So that turns either true or false. This turns either true or false. So after that, we evaluate the left and the right expression with using the and, comparing the left and the right side of the and, because there's a bracket for the not. Then we evaluate the not parameter. So if a was equal to 8, that is true, that is true. So we get true on both sides of the and, right? And the not of true becomes false, and that ends up becoming our final result for this beautiful Boolean expression. What are conditionals? Once again, we use conditionals to control the flow of our program. So if my control is flowing this way and we hit a condition, if that condition is true, I execute the code block that belongs to this condition, and then I continue on with the code. If that condition is false, we go, woo! We skip the conditional code and we continue on with the flow of our program. So that's what I mean by flow of the program. All right, and the most basic way to do a conditionals is using an if statement. If statement requires a single Boolean expression that evaluates either true or false. If it's only true, if that Boolean expression evaluates to true, we execute the code block inside. So in this beautiful example here, I have if num is greater than num2, then I'm going to print out num1 is bigger, right? So only if this Boolean expression was true, I would execute this print statement. Otherwise, I would continue on with my code. Now, if we wanted more of a binary decision, this is called an if-else statement, where we have two potential pathways for our code. If this Boolean expression was true, I would execute the code block existing in the if statement. Otherwise, I go into the else block, okay? Else only executes if this Boolean expression is false. And else executes pretty much if any Boolean expression above the else turns false that is related to this else statement, okay? All right. Also, when you write if statements, don't forget your colon. We don't need a Boolean condition here because an else statement means that all the above Boolean expression has failed. Okay. And we're going to indent once to code our block. Okay, we're going to use tab, right, which is equal to 4 spaces. and that belongs to this code. And there you go. Code block. What is a code block? Okay, and I have an example code here. We're gonna go talk about that, right? In Python, we describe a block of code by its indentation, okay? And we're gonna have different block levels, okay? So at level 1, okay, we have line 0, 1, 3, and 6. All these are on the level 1 indentation block, okay? So they belong to level 1. On level 2, these two belongs to this if statement here, and level 2 here belongs to this else statement. So these two, line 4, 5, and 7, 8 is considered a code block. Okay? If this statement was true, I would execute this. If this statement was false, we ignore this, go into the else code block. No matter what happens here, we go all the way to here, exit these code blocks, and on line 9, we're going to print program has finished. And remember, one indent should be 4 white spaces, and we should have set that into our settings on your replit. Okay? In programming, especially in Python, your structure, the way that you indent and place your brackets, end your brackets, place your colon is very important. And I really recommend that you use your tab keys. Don't flip-flop. Don't use spaces on one line. Don't use tabs on one line. Be very consistent, okay? I don't care if you're on team tab or team spaces, okay? Just make sure consistency is your friend. All right, we can also have if, elif, and else statement. This is when we have an if statement, and this has one Boolean expression. And next, we can say elif, we have another related expression that could be true, and another related condition. And then if all of those failed or false, we go into this else block. And I want to show you what that means. So let's take an input of an integer. Let's say enter a number. Woohoo! And if we go if num is equal to 0, print num is 0. Elif num equal to, print num is 2. Let's change that to num. And one more, num is equal to 3. You can have millions of elifs if you wanted, but I'm just going to stop at 2 elifs. Num is 3. And we're going to put an else statement here saying print num is too big or too large. Okay. When I use an elif instead of another if statement, what I like to do is I want to create an elif if I have a condition that is something else than the if statement's condition. However, it is related because we're still comparing or we're still analyzing this variable called numbers. We're using our comparison operators to look at if the left side is equal to the right side. And based on those truth or Boolean values, we're going to execute or print one of these 4 options, okay? If this was an elif here, okay, if this was an elif here, or just an if here, and these are all related, this is a separate own Boolean condition statement here. And what happens is we will check this. If that is true, we'll execute this, and it'll check this again. If it will be false, it'll be false. And since else only it's related to these two, it will print num is too large, and I'll show you what happens. Okay, so let's do one. Right, it's going to print num is too large because we checked this, print num is 0, and it's going to go false, false. Awesome. We got into our else, num is too large. Now you're thinking, oh, it's working perfectly fine. Let's try with enter number 0. See, it prints out num is 0 and num is too large because this else must be followed by an if, but it is only related to this if. Okay. Therefore, when you're dealing with conditions that are related to each other, that's when you use elif. All right. Now, we can also do something called nested if statement, where we have an if statement within an if statement, and elif statements can have an if statement inside, and else statements can also have if statements inside. Like a Russian nesting doll, you can have lots of things, okay? The more nested you get, it can become very complex and messy. I do recommend that you avoid. However, the world's your oyster, so you can code whenever you like. So let's say here, if num is greater than 0. So we're making sure our number is greater than 0. I have now indented. I am nesting. And I want to do another condition related to that number. If num modulus 2 is equal to 0, I'm checking. My num is even now. If I got this far, my number is even. I say one more if. Num less than 10. Print I like this number. So let's try this. If I do 3, there's nothing, right? Because we didn't hit this part, because 3 is not even. Let's try with 4. I input 4. 4 is greater than 0. Perfect. 4 divided by 2 has a remainder of 0. Perfect. 4 is less than 10. Perfect. We got here. Okay. Now I'm going to write my else statement. And I don't like this number. All right. I have that else statement here, and watch what happens. Okay. If I try with 3 again, it prints me nothing. Because it failed this condition. Rather than failing this condition, we failed this condition. And we haven't wrote code where to handle what happens if this code fails. So let's say if I were to do 100, right? It got I do not like this number because it passed this, it also passed this, but it failed this Boolean condition check. Therefore, we went to the else. This else only belongs to its level code blocks if statement above. Okay? This will always look for the if statement on the same code block level. So in this scenario, I also have to do this. Each if statement is going to require an else statement that belongs to it. So if I do 3 now, perfect. I do not like this number. I got to here and it failed. If I do -3, num is less than equal to 0, so I do not like this number. It is this output here. So be careful with your nesting. If you have conditions like this, make sure that all of them has an else statement if you want to create binary decisions for all of them. So what I want you to do is try creating a rock, paper, scissors game. It's going to be very hard for the first time programmer, but it'll be very rewarding. Basically, if you don't know how to play rock, paper, scissors, scissors beat paper, paper beats rock, rock beats scissors. And we're going to create a 2-player program for rock, paper, scissors. Okay? And in this slide set, if you go on, I have started for you, and I want you to try to finish that, and we'll revisit rock, paper, scissors in a later video. Thank you for watching, and stay classy.